Hey Grant, if you want to have a seat on stage, we have a little something for you.
All right.
Yeah, you better join the crowd. Let's see. That's your place up there.
All right.
Pulled off a surprise or not, but
You did. You did, for sure.
well, we figured that since a lot of us are seniors this year, and since this is your last full-time year, and that some of us won't have the chance to do this later, we thought we'd definitely make sure we thank you for everything that you've done for us here at Channel 13. And we thought, well, let's see, how could we do that? There's all kinds of different ways. Make sure you get your mic on. And
Yeah, that you can start by teaching me how to put my mic on.
well, basically, here's the premise of tonight. I don't know how long it'll go or what the plan is, but we've been talking with a lot of people over the last couple weeks and figured out some fun stuff. And basically, Grant Price, this is your life.
Oh ho! Now I know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Now I'm gonna know.
Right. Basically, we've been doing a little bit of research. You think we've been slacking off on our television production around here, and we didn't pull off the night watch last week or anything, but we have been working on a few little surprises for you around here. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun. First of all, thank you all for coming. We sent letters out to ComArt students and those other people who are associated, and hopefully we'll have a few surprises in amongst it all too.
You could stop now and we'd have a pretty good time.
Well, we figured we'd do that. First of all, we'll start out, and now correct me if any of this is wrong, because I've done some reporting on it, but I don't know that I've got it all perfect. Grant Price was born November 11th, 1922. In Saskatchewan, Canada.
You can stop right there.
So he is a Canadian by blood, correct?
By blood.
And how long did you live there?
Till I was 13.
13. And
high school
then you went to Atchison, Nebraska.
Let's make it Atkins.
Atkinson, Nebraska. All right.
The natives call it Atkinson.
Okay, then that's what we'll call it too. Went to high school in Atkinson, Nebraska. And then after that, you got a scholarship to American University in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And what was that scholarship? What did you study out there?
I'm not sure.
Grant Price, our hero.
Well, I was a speech major, and I guess that maybe covers it. And I went to some classes, some other classes too.
Exactly.
I kind of, I was sort of a model for what goes on around here, like show up a couple days a week.
Sure, yeah, you just kind of whenever you have time for it and that type of thing too. Good. Well, you kind of know then what we go through as college students a little bit also. Then after you got out of the American University in Washington, D.C., you enrolled in the U.S. Navy, is that right?
That's not exactly the way it worked.
Okay, how did it work then?
You get greetings from Uncle Sam.
Oh, I see.
And
well, we seem to have come across something from one of those times, and if we could pull up that, we will be able to see Grant Price, the sailor. He was in the U.S. Navy here. We have our own monitor here. There he is, Grant Price, the sailor. Sailor Man Grant, and
you are aware of the libel laws.
Well, and how long were you in the Navy, and what did you do there?
A couple of years.
Yeah.
I was trained to be a radar operator.
Okay.
And they kept us in a dark room, and we looked at tubes, and it was the radar crew.
Excellent, excellent. Well, then after your days of what we saw there on the screen of being a Navy seaman, you returned to school at Morningside College in Sioux City, right?
In Sioux City, right.
And you studied speech.
Right.
Right, and more of that. And then you got your first job in radio at KSCJ in Sioux City.
That is right.
A couple of years ago, and that was while you were in school?
Right. Right.
And there you were staff announcer at 20 years old in 1942.
I was the town crier.
Good deal. All right, and so from KSCJ, do you remember, was it basically a college station? Or?
Oh, no, it was a commercial station. I was the morning announcer. Okay. I used to get up and ride the streetcar down past the stockyards down to downtown Sioux City and sign the station on.
Excellent.
Right. Huh. And you see, I told all these folks it's good for you to do that kind of stuff.
Sure,
right?
sure. Get up at crack of dawn and go do that type of stuff. Good deal. Well, then, after your first stop at KSCJ in Sioux City, you moved on to another place in Sioux City, KTRI.
KTRI, right.
And was that also when you were in school?
I did. As a matter of fact, the sequence on it is I worked at KSCJ before I went in the Navy.
Oh, okay.
And then when I got back into civilian life, got back in the business at KTRI, which was the other station in Sioux City at that time. Good. And I did spend about a semester going to school and being the night announcer at KTRI.
You do all the shifts, boy. And there you were also staff announcer and newscaster, and then your first job as news director.
That's right.
Among a list of different things that were yet to come. And so at KTRI, you stayed there until you were about 33 years old? Somewhere in that area?
Well,
yeah,
probably.
I think about 33 years old.
Time slips by.
Yeah, you stayed there, it must have been about 10 years, or 13 years in Sioux City, somewhere in there?
No, it was less than that. Okay. I came to Waterloo in 1948.
Right.
And we were at I've forgotten the name of the KXEL.
Sure, right. And that was your next step. KXEL in Waterloo. At 33 years old, in June of 1948, you became the news chief there. That's what I have heard. And we actually have a picture from KXEL, your first job at 33. This was on a news flyer that was held then, and at KXEL, 33 years old, it was your first news chief position. And if we could call that up, that would be great. There he is. Grant Price behind the microphone of KXEL.
You wouldn't have believed that, would you?
There he is. Yep. That was from a brochure that KXEL put out proclaiming their new news chief and bragging about this new guy that came to Waterloo all the way from Sioux City and was going to take Waterloo by storm someday. Well, while in Sioux City, you seem to have met a gal. And
I met a gal.
She kind of followed you to Waterloo. And I think, well, you know that she is here tonight. Let's see. I think she has something to say also, maybe.
Hi, remember me? This is the mother of your two daughters, Julie Barnes and Lori Camp.
There you go. And so if you
and we also have 5 grandchildren, in case you're wondering. It might be.
Sounds good.
I think they usually call me Phaedra.
Phaedra, that's right. If you will help me welcome Phaedra Price. You want to come up on stage, Phaedra? You want to come up here for a minute?
Hi.
And tell me, what's it like been having to live with Grant through, not having to, but getting to live with Grant through the news director, down through all of the years, as well as kind of the switch over to college and
Sort of like riding a roller coaster.
Sort of like riding a roller coaster.
Yes, indeed.
And you said he's kind of changed now that he's become a college professor.
Yes, he's become a little more, what shall I call it? He's not wearing as many hats as he did a while, that's for sure.
Sure. Well, that's kind of nice.
He's always been great without doing that, wearing a lot of hats.
Good deal.
And he loves it here.
Well,
He really does. He loves all the young people, and I can see why. They're a great bunch.
Super. Well, thank you very much for. I don't know if you really knew it, but Phaedra was in cahoots with us and was helping us out with all of this. So
She has conspired against me all of these.
I tell you, it just goes to show you a woman can keep a secret.
all right. Thank you very much, Phaedra.
very
You're welcome
welcome.
to grab a seat right over here.
And my pleasure.
Great. Well, that's the first of some guests that we have. Like I said, you were married on October 24th, 1948 in Waterloo after, not long after, a couple months after you moved to Waterloo.
That's
from the
right.
very beginning. And you have 2 daughters, Julie and Lori, and 5 grandchildren.
That's right.
Scattered throughout, one in Marion, Iowa, and one in St. Paul or Minneapolis.
In the
or
Twin
somewhere right there.
Cities.
Good deal. Well, you were at KXEL from 1948 to 1959, and so you were there for 11 years at KXEL. And at 44, you decided to move south to WMT.
Took a real leap south.
Right. And now at WMT, you were in Cedar Rapids. Did you start out in radio and then add television after that?
I went to a radio job at what was then the WMT stations, and it was what we called a combined shop. They also were doing television, and so, but I was on the radio side my job was on the radio side when I joined them.
But then soon thereafter, you got on the TV side also.
I started doing some weekend newscasts. Sound familiar, folks? On television, and then eventually became the news director there.
And so there at WMT, you got to work with a lot of different people, a lot of kind of legends, and you really got, and kind of Eastern Iowa got to know you, as well as you kind of got to know Eastern Iowa from a reporter.
I'm not sure I know it yet. I'm still working on it.
You have a few years experience anyway. Good deal. Well, among many of the things you did at WMT was an occasional reporter position.
Oh, yes.
And somewhere in the early 1960s, a tornado hit Cedar Rapids. And soon thereafter, WMT came on the news with Funnel in the Night, a news program anchored by Grant Price back in the days of black and white television.
Yeah.
And first of all, if we could go to a little bit of video, start that video. I believe that there's some pictures of, there we go. Watch a little bit of Grant Price in action at WMT.
There are some 200 city employees such as these, plus numerous others, working from dawn to dusk with the thankless job of cleaning up the pieces from Wednesday morning's tornado which struck Lynn County. It was just 4 months ago that these fellows were struggling with keeping our streets free from ice and snow. And until this storm hit, they were busy repairing the chuck holes which developed as a result of the hard winter. In late March, they filled sandbags, carted them out to the banks of the Cedar River and the city sewers, then several weeks later brought them all back, the battle having been won. And now they're again following the traces of nature's third line of assault on Lynn County this year. This time, nature revealed herself in the form of tornadic winds. That is our story tonight, the storm and the cleanup. Described as a violent whirling wind, especially in the central part of the United States, accompanied by a rapidly rotating funnel-shaped cloud that usually destroys everything along its narrow path. Fred Thompson of 1112 J Avenue Northwest, Cedar Rapids, confirms for WMT newsman Jim Ryman the first half of Webster's definition.
And we hope within the next very few weeks we will have something to announce that will give you concrete evidence so that we can warn people in a case where we do have tornadoes after midnight.
While Conrad analyzes the storm conditions that caused it, another group of people in Cedar Rapids are busy analyzing the condition that it caused. These persons, of course, are the insurance adjusters upon which the burden of relieving the anxieties of damaged homeowners falls. We're here in the Merchants National Bank building with two such harried adjusters, Mr. R.D. McManigal and Mr. Richard Hauser. Gentlemen, I'd like to ask you several questions relating to your responsibilities in this situation. Has the number of claims, the volume of claims, been increasing today?
Yes, it has. It's been increasing quite rapidly.
Do you think you've reached a peak yet, Mac?
No, I don't believe we have. I think that will probably come next week.
Dick, have you had a similar experience?
Yes, we have. I believe that the top will be reached next week sometime.
The mayor and citizens of Cedar Rapids have had their share of nature's torment this year. We at Broadcast Park have felt the impact too, as our bent flagpole gives evidence of. As we look back on it all in retrospect, we can give thanks that no one was seriously hurt. As Thomas Herzog so aptly put it, what has been lost is replaceable.
Amazing.
You remember that one?
I do now, but I really, and I'm going to try to forget it.
What was it like working with the equipment back then? I mean, we found this, and I mean the equipment and producing a show like this so soon after a tornado must have been a tremendous amount of work.
Well, it was, of course, we were working with film, with 16mm film, black and white film, and I really don't recall the circumstances. We did do half-hour documentaries at WMT during that time period, but this, it appears this is one that we got together in a hurry, and some of it sounded like we were in quite a hurry.
Yeah. Well, those were just a few snippets of the half-hour-long show that was on, complete with beautiful graphics and black and white color and everything. We do have a picture of you working at WMT, also on one of their advertisements. There's Grant behind the typewriter with his bow tie off, working diligently, just like a great reporter should be.
Isn't that inspirational?
Well, that is a really neat picture, and that is really neat. We did get a hold of one of your co-workers down in WMT, Dave Shea. And he was not able to be here because he is in Seattle with his grandchildren. But he did send a letter, and we do have that on CG too, and it might just pass too quickly, but I will read it as it kind of flies by you on the screen.
Okay.
When it comes up here. It reads, Dear Grant, I am so sorry to miss your second retirement party, but I will be in Seattle becoming acquainted with a new grandson. I missed your first retirement party, believe it or not, for a similar reason. It is ironic, and I feel unfortunate that we spend most of our careers as representatives of competing stations and news departments, but I vividly remember and highly value our association at WMT. I remember most clearly a meeting in your office one day. Our competitors had started to awaken, and WMT-TV's share of news audiences slipped from the 60% that it once enjoyed. We knew that this would happen, and of course we were concerned, but not nearly as upset as some of the people back in the back office. And I do remember you saying that we would not change our view of journalism and what our job was, but we would do it better. The last 25 years have demonstrated the wisdom of your vision. I strongly suspect that you have instilled the same clearness of purpose in your students at Wartburg and that you did in your reporters at Cedar Rapids and Waterloo. There are not many people who have had such such success in a career, then retired with such respect and admiration of colleagues and the public. To have done it twice as you have is virtually unheard of. So I am delighted to hear a report now that in your second retirement you still have more projects in mind. Maybe even there will be a third retirement party, one I can attend, as I think the arrival of grandchildren is nearing the end. Best regards, Dave Shea.
That's very nice.
So Dave did send that up to you. We also did contact a member of your staff. Well, tell you what, we'll move on to KWWL first.
Okay.
From WMT, you stayed there from 1959 to 1972. Mm-hmm. And then you moved back up to Waterloo at KWWL, and you became news director up in Waterloo. One of the early people you worked with was named Peterson.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember him?
Tom Peterson.
Tom
Absolutely.
Peterson. He has since moved on to WGN Radio in Chicago.
He has indeed.
He is morning news anchor, and he is also news director of the station in WMT. He sent us a cart of a cassette tape, and we did lose the beginning of it as part of a little technical glitch that we had, but we did get to save some parts about what he remembers about a show called Broadcasting in You.
Oh, yes.
A show that you did there at Channel 7 with him, and he describes about how his first time meeting you and getting you onto the stage for his first encounter with Broadcasting in You. If you want to roll that little sound clip, please.
Sit there on the set and those bright lights and answer questions that were phoned in from our audience about broadcasting, specifically about the TV station. And the questions were something to behold. Questions like, why were the commercials louder than everything else? And why didn't we run bowling scores on the sports or professional wrestling? And on and on and on. And I remember the first time that Grant actually participated in one of those shows, and we were out there for about 2 hours, and I frankly thought at the end of that, when we were all wringing wet, and it had been a very long night, that Grant didn't retire at that time. But he stuck around, and he did it for quite a while after I left there, so he's a better man than I am. I wish you, Grant, all the very best in retirement. It was always a pleasure working with you. I have many fond memories of working at Channel 7, and I wish you the very best as you retire. And again, from myself, from all of us who have worked with you, again, the very best for retirement and for all the things that you have done for broadcast journalism. Good luck.
Thank you, Tom.
That was Tom Peterson. And since then, I'm sure that, like him, there are a lot of people who have moved on to bigger markets and different things like that you know all over the country, and everyone knows Grant Price as well. In your time at KWWL, you didn't spend necessarily all of your time at the news department. Sometimes you went out for coffee, from what I understand. And we just happened to find someone that used to go out to coffee with you, and maybe this is what he had to say.
Hi, Grant. We'll have to skip back a little bit to about 1954 to 59, when your voice used to awaken my new bride and I every morning with the news. It was a stentorian voice, and it helped me because I knew what I'd be facing an hour and a half later when I arrived at the police station, covering the police beat for the Courier. Wow. I was supposed to be a coffee buddy according to the program here, but you had no time for coffee in those days. I did. I was lucky. I could spend all day at the police station. You were a one-man news operation.
Tell you what, let's go ahead and bring in Dave Seltzer from Waterloo. Come on in, Dave.
My gosh.
Glad you could come tonight. Thank you very much for taking some time. Tell us, what was it, come on up here for a second. What was it like, describe Grant back in those days and your associations with Grant.
Well, my associations with him were at a time when we were told we in the print media, I was with the Courier, that these guys were no good. And,
words came straight out of Gene Thorne's mouth.
We were told never to associate with, never to trust, ignore them. And I was told by the police chief in Waterloo at that time, the late Harry Krieg, that this guy was the straightest arrow he'd ever met, and I found that to be true. And we very quickly learned, I learned, that he was a man to be trusted with anything. And if I was able to help him once in a while because I had so much more time, I was glad to do it. He was harried.
I always kept his secret, too. Dave, wonderful colleague. How wonderful to see you.
It's good to see you.
Thank
Brad.
you very much.
Thank you very much for coming up tonight. You're welcome to have a seat over here as well if you want to. Well, that was one of your acquaintances down there at Channel 7, but one of your jobs, as well as being news director, was to take on the viewpoint of the station down there every once in a while. And I know I told you I was borrowing a viewpoint for my class.
Deception.
I got this viewpoint from Grant. He gave it to me himself, but he thought I was using it for a...
You just blew an A.
Yeah, I used it in my favor. I really did. But here is a picture, or here is some video of Grant Price in December of 1992. It's one of his last editorials at Channel 7.
Stacks is getting some national attention. Speaking for KWWL, Grant Price comments on this effort.
Developing a national park here in Northeast Iowa to showcase America's agricultural industrial heritage is one of those good ideas that at first glance seems unlikely to happen. However, it didn't seem that way to a group of Waterloo citizens and public officials, and their efforts are starting to pay off. Silos and smokestacks, as it's known, would preserve the unique history of the relationship between farming and agriculture-related industry that was nurtured and continues to flourish in this area. It would be centered here in Black Hawk County, where names such as Rath and Deere come immediately to mind. But there are many other possibilities. The invention of the farm tractor, which led to mechanized agriculture in America, is a Northeast Iowa heritage. The Silos and Smokestacks Committee set to work on developing this idea. They raised a substantial amount of private donations to support their efforts, and in a remarkably short space of time, less than a year, have interested the National Park Service in scheduling it for a reconnaissance study. If it is funded by Congress, the study would take place beginning next October. Thus encouraged, the committee is setting about developing some prototypes for inclusion in the project and developing more detailed information for the study. The committee members should be commended for the work they have done, and they should be strongly supported in their future efforts to actually make this happen. The Silos and Smokestacks National Park, to preserve and display an important slice of American heritage, would be an important magnet for tourism and development in Northeast Iowa.
That's our editorial board's opinion.
That was one of his last segments there at Channel 7, and as a result, I believe that they do now have Silos and Smokestacks, don't they?
Well, it is an ongoing project, right?
Well, among many other things, we do have some other old pictures that we'll kind of scatter in. So as soon as one gets called up, we'll pop up another one of an older or of a younger Grant Price a few years ago. But as you continued your time through Channel 7, you came in contact with a lot of different people, and oh, there's Tammy Winesek, not Grant Price. But anyway. You did have a lot of people that you worked with down there at Channel 7, and those must have been some very fulfilling years down there at Channel 7.
Oh, they really were, Eric. It was in many ways a remarkable experience. I went to work there for a giant of a boss named Robert Buckmaster, who was one of the really unique Iowans. And to work with his successor, Harry Slife, and Bill Bolster, who is now the GM of the NBC flagship station in New York City, and just wonderful, wonderful people to be associated with, and an organization that really gave much more than lip service to the words public service. And that was one of the really gratifying things about my experience at Channel 7, that it's under local management, it really addressed itself to, as we did in this little editorial that you saw, looking at things that might benefit the community and supporting them when we thought we could, and criticizing them when we thought we shouldn't.
Exactly.
And then, you know, you can't be right about everything. We were in favor of the dog track, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you were a definite cornerstone to that. Here's another picture of Grant Price working behind the radio mic. I believe this was back at WMT also. Then, after you put in your time at KWWL, you decided to move north one more time, up here to Wartburg. Tell us a little bit about your first experience and your association with getting to know Wartburg and the decision to move up.
Well, again, the connection was through Blackhawk Broadcasting, and specifically Harry Slife, who, when he retired from Channel 7 as president of the Blackhawk Broadcasting Company, he had been on the Wartburg Board of Trustees and was for some time after that. But he took a little turn at teaching up here and enjoyed it. Excuse me. And had a very close association with Bob Vogel, and had the rather weird idea, really, that maybe I might somehow be able to do some teaching. And it was something that had not ever occurred to me as a real possibility. So we got together for lunch one day with Bob, and it seemed like it might be something that we could give a try, and that's really how it happened. The following fall, then I started teaching. That would be in the fall of 1990,
right.
Teaching Intro to Electronic Media, which you have all been subjected to.
Exactly. One of the people who was kind of not key, but one of the people who can be considered your boss is here, and let's see what he has to say.
Well, I remember Grant once told me that reporters hate rumors, but they love facts. Unless, of course, they can turn the rumor into a fact.
Okay, Jim.
So this year, at the beginning of the faculty workshop, when we were focusing on technology, I started a rumor. You may remember that out in the courtyard there was this statue covered with a big blue tarpaulin. And people had suspected that it was a statue of St. Francis, but at the faculty workshop I started a rumor and said it was really a statue of Grant Price holding a satellite dish. May have been the best joke I ever told at a faculty meeting.
Exactly. Dean Pence, would you please come on in? Thank you very much for taking the time to stop by and visit with us tonight. Tell us a little bit about your associations with Grant.
Well, you know, Grant and I started at the same time. In fact, one of the stories, what I was going to say is in the summer of 1990, you may remember you came into my office and I just arrived, and you said to me, you know, Jim, I'm a little nervous about this professor thing. And what I said was, well, Grant, I'm a little nervous about this dean thing. So maybe over the course of the coming years we can work through it together. And
yeah, but I'm lasting longer than you are.
You took my line again. But I also remember the many, many conversations we've had about this program, about this facility, about building a television program incrementally and doing it right. And I think we've done that, and it's a tribute to you that we've been able to do it that way, and to these people out here who've come here.
Well, one of the reasons we've been able to do it is because of your support, Jim, and so let me thank you for that before you leave.
Okay. Thank you, Grant.
Great. Thank you very much for coming. Well, now that you did come to Wartburg, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily stopped all of your reporting and editorializing and getting your words in edgewise on campus. In fact, this last term, you did promote or produce an editorial for the KWAR Marathon, and we had to do some looking, but we did find that editorial way in the bottom. So if you could run that, and we'll hear one more editorial from Grant Price.
The major contributor to the problem of student stress is the attitude of faculty. Students should be able to enjoy life without constantly being subjected to academic harassment. A step which should be taken, effective with the term, is establishment of a 4-day class week. That would enable students to shape their lifestyles around a regular 3-day weekend. Such a step would go a long way toward relieving the guilt trip which frequently accompanies cutting classes on Friday. This policy should be written into the handbook immediately. Another thing that would help is uninterrupted naps in classes. Faculty seem not to realize how necessary it is for students to stay up most of the night. Some effort by instructors to avoid loud noises, which tend to interrupt sleep patterns, would help ease this problem. There is also the question of why professors should expect students to be in class every day. Haven't they heard of the committee system? After all, that's the way they spend most of their time. We are of the opinion that a committee of 2 or at the most 3 students could attend classes, represent the group, and prepare a synopsis, which on one double-spaced page would cover most of what goes on in class. If students also chose to read the text, that could be a useful option. Then there is the overriding issue contributing to student stress. Don't faculty realize that students are here to get an education? They should not be burdened down with details such as tests and papers, which only distract them from concentrating on the great themes of life, which they discuss at Joe's.
I remember my 2-hour shift on the marathon. I got so many requests to play that. I would play it, and then somebody in the controller's office would say, "Oh, I just got the last 5 seconds of that. Please play it again." So we played that a lot, and that was great. That's just a good representation of the fun that we have around here. And I mean, we do a lot of learning, but we also have a lot of fun around here too. And so that's great. As you have been here at Wartburg, you have continued ties with Channel 7, however, and a lot of people have gone on to work there and have internships and stuff there. And I am one of them that is going to move on to there in the summer. But you have had continued close contact with Channel 7, and there is a representative of Channel 7 here who would like to say a word or two about Grant Price.
Really?
Well, although I never worked for Grant directly, I sit in his chair, and sometimes those journalistic arms reach around me, grab me by the throat and say, "Do journalism, boy, do journalism." I've decided about the only way I'm ever going to be able to do that is to hire everybody that ever graduates from Wartburg College.
Nevin Nagy from Channel 7.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Nevin.
Well, if you come on over here, Nevin, thank you very much for coming up, Nevin, and for taking some time. What's it been like to try to fill the shoes of Grant Price?
You know, there's this big, huge mountain in Iowa journalism, and it says Grant Price on it. And no, it's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, he is still alive in my office, and in my life, there's this little anthill down at the bottom of that mountain that says Nevin Nagy. And my job is to make that little ant climb that mountain every once in a while and still do Iowa journalism. And so, you know, I honestly think that no matter what will ever happen, when everything passes away, when we quit talking about all of the things that are going on in current TV, and you take a look at what has happened over the years in Iowa, Grant Price's name will still be on top of the list. He's the man, has been always, and will be.
Exactly. Thank you very much for coming up, Nevin.
Nevin, thank you.
Well, then, as you continued to teach at Wartburg, you came and some other professors came and went and came and went. And one of those professors was my professor when I was a freshman year, and along with you, this professor used to teach radio production here at Wartburg, and here's what she has to say. Maybe. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Pat Blank wasn't able to make it, I'm sorry. She was planning on making it, and we'll see if we can get that a little bit later. But as you moved on throughout your time here at Wartburg, students began to, in the communication arts department, really enjoy taking classes from Grant Price. And it was a lot of fun, and you'd never know what would happen during a class with Grant Price. Everything.
Don't tell the dean left yet.
Exactly. But there are some things that Grant Price is kind of known of in class. And ladies and gentlemen, would you please
be careful with that.
Would you please welcome Professor Grant Price, who is here to give us a little lesson on the electronic media.
Yeah, that's fine. Here's your mic.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Too many cords in these television studios. That's okay.
Don't want to ruin the overhead.
No.
Well, good evening, class, and welcome to Electronic Media. My name is Grant Price, and I've got, today in class, we've got to go over some things. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well or not. Well, in the media, you are, the people are bombarded with different messages. And one of the recent things that has come on in the past couple of years is the talk show. You've got Oprah, and you've got Ricky, and who's this new one? This Carney. Anyway, some of the subject matter is really ridiculous. We've got very poor subject matter. That's something you should write down in your notes. Definitely. Now, the reason we have these shows is because of ratings, which ratings making a bang-up business, and with the whole talk show situation, this is just a great moneymaker for the networks. Now, you may be asking yourself, you know, are the money changers in the media temple? Well, I tell you this, they have been there. A clip to show you, just a second here, if I could find the remote. Anyway, let's see. Well, okay, here we go. Well, okay, it'll be on in just. Why is that doing that? Tim, would you take care of that for me? Okay. Well, anyway, that's really about it for today. I hope you got all this down. And I'd like to thank you for coming to class today. I know that you don't like to come to class only maybe once a week. So anyway, that will be all. Make sure you study your text.
Thank you very much.
hope this young man is familiar with the libel laws.
Well, we had to do our best, Grant Price.
You got it. You got
it. So thank you very much, Jay, for helping us out.
I hope the damn tape machine snagged.
Oh, stuff. Well, one of the other people who has worked with you side by side these last several years is a good friend to you, and has really worked with you on taking this department to new levels and really making it a department that Wartburg can really be proud of, and expanding the department really greatly, and it's really a credit to both of you. And she's here, and she has a few words for you.
Hi, Grant. When I was thinking about coming here to teach back in the fall of '93, I was a little sad to be leaving the newsroom in New York, but I was excited at the prospect of working with the legend of broadcasting in Iowa. And when I got here and met you, I felt right at home. For me, Grant, you're the journalist's journalist. By this I mean that you have made your mark in the professional world, not only as a practitioner, but also as a leader, helping to shape the future of television coverage in Iowa and to mold future broadcasters who have come under your supervision. It only made sense that you bring your skills, experience, and vision to the Academy, where I think you exemplify what it takes to be a successful faculty member. As a colleague, you've really guided me in making the transition from journalist to teacher. I feel truly blessed to have worked with you.
Thank you very much. Would you please welcome Shelley Green? Shelley, what's it been like to work with Grant these last couple of years?
Well, I would say that it's been enjoyable, surprising sometimes. It's just been a really enjoyable experience.
She keeps trying to get me to go to faculty meetings.
And there is one small thing that annoys me that I might have to mention.
Okay, what's that?
Well, sometimes we send out joint letters, and we have this little tussle about whether we're going to send them in all caps or caps and lowercase. Sometimes he wins, sometimes I do.
You win the capital war sometimes. Well, from what I understand, you also have, in association with the trumpet staff, a little something for Grant.
Yes, we do. Suzanne, would you like to present this to Grant?
We have a mock front page of the trumpet. Sweet G signs off.
Wow. Thank you.
A little something, a little bit from everyone, from Suzanne to Shelley and everyone, some world briefs, including the Pope names another saint, Grant Price, capitalization can damage eyesight, Barron's accused of international espionage, Edward Murrow lives again, and the statue gets a new facelift about St. Francis.
And I do not shout on the internet.
There you go. All right. Thank you very much, Shelley, for your help.
Thank you.
And we do also have one final representative of the college here to give a little thank you on behalf of the institution for your time and your full-time service here that's ending now soon, and your service in the future also.
Grant, there were two pressures, as I remember, on you when you were thinking about coming up here. The one was your concern that you could do it in the classroom. You didn't want to be teaching if the students weren't getting anything from you. And the second was Phaedra, who worried about what in the world her life would be like if she couldn't find something for you to do outside of the house. And if there was no other evidence than tonight to be testimony to what you have meant to this place and to students and to your colleagues, both in faculty and administration, it would be enough. But
but the communication arts program will never be the same. You've helped us establish a new standard to see your students, the confidence they have, the energy and the excitement they have about the program and the prospects that they have for the future. You've just brought so much to us, and we're so grateful to Harry Slife, who we all remember tonight, and to you, that you made your way up here and have contributed this part of your life to this place. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Vogel.
It's been great. It's been great. Thank you.
Dr. Vogel, thank you very much for taking time and honoring Grant. Do you have any good memories of Grant Price stories or anything like that? Ways that Grant Price has not only touched us students, but as well as the whole college as a whole.
Well, I think this whole business of how to deal with journalists and the media, I think the college has grown institutionally in that respect, as well as students in the program. And that's a tribute to his professionalism and the standard that he has set. And we're grateful for that. I've learned a lot in the process myself.
Thank you.
And there's just so many things. It's exciting.
Excellent. Thank you very much for taking time to come and visit with us. Well, we in the communications department have been trying to rip this thing together here in the last week or so.
How come you don't have a night watch?
Yeah, well, this takes the place of it. Oh. This is much more news in our minds anyway. And what we did this past week was set up a videotape for students to make comments about Grant Price, as well as a special visitor or two who happened by the building. But let's go ahead and roll the video from students and other people around Wartburg College.
About Grant is from a personal anecdote that I have. I wrote a story on a Navy warship. I thought it was a Navy warship, and I wrote down the USS Yorktown, a Navy warship, in my copy. Well, Grant has some experience, naval experience anyway. He called me to the office the next day and said, "What is this?" And he threw my script across the desk at me and said, "This is not a warship." And I said, "What is it?" Very innocently, and he said, "This is a battleship." I said, "There's a difference?" Oh, I should have never asked that. "There's a difference between one has guns and the other one doesn't," he said. And to this day, I was so shocked. I don't really know which one has guns and the other one doesn't. So that was one of my copy stories that I had with Grant. He was very particular about copy. He had to have everything very accurate.
I'll never forget the first time he swore in front of me. You'll always remember that. You'll always remember the first time you swore. We were going to KBBG to do an interview in the house, and we missed an exit. He said the four-letter S explicitive, and I'm in the club. I'm in the club.
Don't force it!
Hi, I'm J.D. Miller, but in the Comm Arts Department by Grant Price, I'm also known as DJ, CJ,
sometimes
RJ, JS, PQ, you name it. But we love you, Grant.
Don't force it!
I got that.
Throughout intro to electronic media and electronic news gathering, Grant was famous for the saying, "Don't force it," when we would be trying to connect the video head with the camera. And we had to line it up just perfect so you didn't wreck any of the amazing equipment that we had. Last fall, as I was walking around kind of picking up the equipment room, I couldn't quite get a microphone onto the cord. And it just wouldn't quite go. And so I took it into Grant thinking we're going to have to send this into ECS or someone's going to have to fix it. But he said, Eric, you know, sometimes you just gotta force it. He pushed it with all his might, and it went.
Sometimes you just gotta force it.
Okay, right on. The saying of the year has been, sometimes you just gotta force it.
Because I remember. Okay, he was taking the EM class to WHO in Des Moines, and he was introducing us to, I can't remember the name of the guy, I know he was the news director up there, and he was going down the line, this is Paul Yeager and Doug Carlson, and he gets to me, and he got Mike Van Gorkum right, who was in our class, and he gets to me and just goes, Tim. Goes right on. So not only have I been called Mike Van Gorkum, but I guess the name Tim completely erases the mind. So I've also been called Time, and I think I've probably been called Paul on a few occasions, and I'm sure under his breath I've been called a few curse words.
You're nothing but trouble. Grant, I think we're missing the power pack. Oh, damn it. Oh, gosh. Jack, can I use your phone?
And I do recall Grant Price singing us a little tune. Don't buy me posies when it's shoesies that I need.
Mike, you're showing us more than we need to know.
It was a perfect Grantism. He said, I'm pulling the lever here now.
I'm proud. This is quite an undertaking.
But the best thing about Grant is that he's wonderful. He's a wonderful defender of free press, and he's a wonderful defender of his employees and of his students, and he's a humble man, and he's a great mentor, and there's just nobody else like him. He's just quite a character. He's a great guy.
Thank you very much, Grant, for everything that you have given us all in the Communication Arts department here in the past 6 years, and we're really going to miss you next year after your first term of slacking off a little bit around here. Enjoy your time with your wife, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the future also.
Well, I kind of, I guess, stole my own thunder there at the end of that piece, but finally, I guess, Grant, it's my turn.
Don't force it.
I'll try not to. But like I said, finally, Grant, it's my turn, and on behalf of the many students over the last 6 years who've been privileged enough to call you their professor, thank you. Thank you for being the type of person who's willing to sacrifice 6 years of their retirement years in favor of us, the next generation. Thank you for the integrity that you have exhibited in your professions, both in the industry and in the halls of the Communication Arts Building. Thank you for the many years of experience you have shared with us. Thank you for tackling issues on campus head-on and fighting for what you believe is right. Thank you for the genuine concern and caring you show for us. From my first campus visit when you showed me this new TV set that was just being built to next year when I visit my alma mater, I have loved every minute spent with you. Thank you for helping us through our tough times and making Wartburg seem a little bit more like home with your great advice and help along the way. And finally, thank you for giving us the opportunity and privilege to get to know a legend in the business, a well-respected human being, a great man, and above all, a true friend. Thank you, Grant, for everything you have done and will continue to do here at Wartburg. You've impacted all our lives greatly and made our days here at college seem a little bit more like home. Thank you.
And now I am speechless. And this is just an absolutely stunning experience. I don't really know what to say. Eric, you used the word sacrifice, and it's it certainly hasn't been that. It's been an absolutely wonderful, wonderful experience for me. And if in some small way I've been able to make a contribution, I'm grateful for that. But what I'm really grateful for is the vibrancy and the energy and the idealism and just the marvelous phenomenon of a generation after generation of students, Bob, coming up to this place with and capable of doing something like this for an old guy. At our retirement party, I told the staff that to pick up on General MacArthur's phrase that old soldiers never die. They retire and move to the 4th floor, but there isn't any 4th floor here. So I'm going to have to stick around for a while longer. So expect to see that overhead system working. Thank you.
We do also have some punch and cake in the journalism lab for you, so please feel free to mingle for a little bit. And thank you all very much for your participation.
Thank you so much, really, everyone.
Thank you very much.